Finance.
Hey everyone, welcome to the 6th episode of the Mad Scientist Financial Independence Podcast. Today I have the pleasure of speaking with Billy and Akaisha Caterly from RetireEarlyLifestyle.com. Billy and Akaisha retired over 22 years ago at the age of 38 and have been traveling the world and enjoying early retirement ever since. I came across Retire Early Lifestyle through a recommendation by a Mad Scientist reader, actually. A commenter named Prob8 left a message on my Shortest Path to Financial Independence article and said that I should try to get in touch with Billy and Akaisha and have them on the podcast because they seem to be doing exactly what my wife and I are planning to do once we achieve financial independence. After taking a look at their website and realizing that they've been traveling around the world, slow traveling, living in amazing places, learning languages, and living like locals, I definitely was very excited to get them on the program just to talk to them about how it's been traveling for 20 plus years and how, a savings of $500,000 between them has lasted for that long, considering all the, financial crisis, the dot-com bust, and everything else that's happened over the past 2 decades. So, really excited to talk to them. So, Billy and Akaisha, thanks a lot for being here.
We love it. Thank you.
Thank you for inviting us.
Yeah, no problem. I'm really excited to chat with you. So, before we dive into what your 20 plus years of early retirement have been like, could you first just tell a little bit about yourself and RetireEarlyLifestyle.com for those that may not be familiar with your story?
Well, we retired in 1991 at the age of 38. None of our friends had this in mind at all. It wasn't even on the radar at all. And our families, of course, thought that we were trying to scam away or something or get something over on someone. And when I had to explain that we're paying for it ourselves, the whole idea was just out of the box. And we traveled until 2005, I think, and we were writing letters. This was far before email was so common. And we used phones, and it was a lot more expensive. And long story short, we decided to start a website, and we wrote all of our updates on the website. And then people would share those updates. And before too long, our website would crash. And so that's sort of how Retire Early Lifestyle came about. We wrote our first book in 2005 after all those years of retirement. So it wasn't like we decided to fund our retirement initially by writing books on how to do it. It sort of organically evolved into that. And now we have like an ebook store, and we answer questions to everybody who writes to us, and we have a newsletter. We answer all those sorts of questions that way.
Excellent. Yeah, I actually just recently, in the last month or so, picked up your Adventurer's Guide to Destination Choices. It's been great reading through that. And I'll obviously link to that in the show notes, and so people can check out all the other books you have. But yeah, you mentioned that none of your friends were doing it, and that's really the thing that's so impressive to me. Like these days, there's lots of great resources like your website and others out there that are talking about how people have done this. But I'm imagining back in 1991 that wasn't the case.
No, Brandon, you have to remember back in the 80s, before we retired in 91, it was the boy with the most toys won.
Right.
And so people were just into acquiring stuff. And we've never been big consumers. And so it just, the wow effects wear off of that stuff pretty quick. And so we just put 2 and 2 together and decided we didn't want to chase our neighbors trying to buy the latest and best newest thing.
Peer pressure was pretty heavy. We were living on the coast of California, and it's beautiful there, and the people are beautiful, the weather's beautiful, and your home's beautiful, and your car's beautiful, and you have beautiful things. And one can really get caught up in that. We sort of did. We've never been big consumers like Billy mentioned, but that peer pressure was certainly there.
Right. And I still find it so impressive that you didn't have anyone really to look up to. And even though you're probably running the numbers yourself and saying, well, this looks possible, but it's like, why doesn't anybody else do it? This seems like a much better way to live. And
Right.
there had to have been some self-doubt.
There definitely was self-doubt. And in fact, but it got to a point where we watched a movie called Joe and the Volcano, and they took this couple, I can't remember who the stars are. They at the end of the movie, they take a leap into the volcano not knowing what their future is.
Right.
And that's kind of what it was with us. We always figured that, look, if it doesn't work, we can always come out of it some way. But
Exactly.
it's worked. It's worked out well for us.
Well, and we also did hit on those mental paradigms where no one else is doing it. Why do we think we can? This is so out of the box. Our friends were not on the same page at all. We didn't share it with anyone. And I have to say, let's see, we started realizing we could do this when we were about 36. And so we took 2 years to pare down our expenses and start to actually track them to see if it was financially feasible for us to do.
A lot of back of the envelope work was done during that period.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we were trying to poke holes through it constantly. Come up with a math, and we'd look at the numbers, and we'd go, okay, what if, and we kept trying to poke holes through it and everything, but all the numbers kept adding up.
The numbers added up, but for me, and I don't know for whomever else, but it was the emotional challenges. Yes, but I want a home. Yes, but I love my garden. Yes, I want to be close to my family. Yes, but we live in one of the most beautiful towns. What about all my friends?
Mm-hmm.
So those things were more of the challenge for me than the numbers. Billy kept assuring me the numbers worked, and I just trusted him because he is so good at math and he was in the finance industry. So I believed him, but it was the emotional challenges that were big for me.
Right. Yeah, that's quite similar with my wife, actually. We've, just visualizing the future and seeing exactly what we would do helped her come around to the idea and realize that, yeah, we'll have to give up some stuff, but there's so much exciting stuff out there that's to come. So
Absolutely.
Once you become financially independent, it becomes a lifestyle and not a vacation.
absolutely, and that's something we're looking forward to most is actually living like locals in in a local neighborhood in an apartment rather than only having whatever 2 weeks a year to go and see somewhere and you're surrounded by American and European tourists and things like that. So that
Exactly.
yeah, so that's what we're very excited about. So Billy, you said you worked in the financial industry. Can you just talk a little bit about that? Is that what that was your last job prior to early retirement?
Yeah, that was my last job. Um, yeah, I was recruited by Dean Witter Reynolds at the time in the West Coast to become a stockbroker, and it worked out well for me. Because we'd owned a restaurant prior to this, I had a lot of business background. And so the whole New York Stock Exchange lifestyle appealed to me. And I was successful quickly. I worked hard, and I worked like nobody else would. I was working 7 days a week. And you ask, how can you work 7 days a week when the stock market's only open at 5? Well, I worked on the weekends. I mean, I cold called until my fingers were bleeding. That's just what I did. Akaisha was running the restaurant at the time, and so our schedules were 180 degrees, and so I had nothing else to do anyway. So I compiled a large list and a large book, as we call it in the brokerage business, of clients. And after 3 years, they gave me an office of my own where I became the branch manager of the Aptos office.
Oh, great.
And
And so Acacia was still working in the restaurant. So this is around when you're 36, right when you decided that maybe that this is possible. You both were working at the brokerage firm and Acacia was running the restaurant. Is that right?
that's correct. And we weren't seeing a whole lot of each other. And in fact, our lives started to split a bit because we had such different lifestyles and such different times that we were working. And we were forming different groups of friends. And so at one point, we just decided that we need to focus more on ourselves than on anything else.
Right. So at 36, you decide, this is possible. You're going to do it. So do you start, attempting to sell the restaurant, I assume, and you're just accumulating as much savings as you can. Is that sort of how it went?
Yeah, that's pretty much it. We successfully sold the restaurant, and we successfully got paid back for it. One of the things that triggered this whole thing is that we sold the restaurant when we were about 36,
Mm-hmm.
and we started receiving payments from it. And when it came time, let me back up just a second. This restaurant, we put our blood, sweat, and tears in it. I mean, the restaurant industry is hard and a hard industry to be successful in, and we were successful. We were one of the finest restaurants in Santa Cruz at that time. And we put a lot of sweat equity into this thing. And well, once we started receiving payments, and then tax time came around, all of the money that we were receiving in payments was going to pay taxes.
Right.
And it was like, wait a minute, this isn't the way I planned this out. And it got to where we were paying over 50% of our income in taxes between federal and the state of California.
Wow.
And I told Akaisha that, look, I'm in partnerships with her. I'm not in partnerships with the federal government or federal and state governments. And so it really de-incentivized myself to working any harder, because I realized that half of my day was being spent paying the government every day.
Right. Yeah.
At that point, Billy had said, we'd be better off if you stayed home and didn't work at all. And that didn't appeal to me because I'm an ambitious sort. I like to accomplish things. And, I was used to moving up the ladder in one form or another. And so I took another job. And when we looked at our finances and realized that basically, all of the income we're making from the restaurant was going to pay for taxes, that's when it hit us that we wanted to do something else. And that's when we started tracking our expenses, backing off of maid services and gardener services and things, dry cleaning services, the things that we just took for granted, and started seeing if we could live without all of the stuff.
We went back and we tracked how much money we were spending in a year if we took out all of our work-related expenses.
Yeah, I actually just read one of your previous articles where you mentioned cost of working, which is a great little phrase, and it's amazing how much that actually is. And when you take that out, you really realize you don't actually live on that much if you take out the cost of working.
Exactly. And as long as you don't have any debt, between no cost of working and no debt, you don't spend that much money, to be honest with you. We don't anyway.
Yeah, I'm excited to dive into that just to see, what a typical year's expenses are when you're living abroad. But before we get to that, what investment strategies did you use?
At that time, it was pretty much the Vanguard Standard & Poor's Index 500 fund.
Perfect. That brings up another story I remember. I think hearing about. I think you mentioned when you discovered index funds, you were, I think, still a stockbroker, and then you sort of felt guilty, bringing people into whatever product your company was selling rather than just going with the index funds. Is that true?
That is very true. I started having doubts in my mind of what I was doing, and that was just another seed that was planted in my mind that I needed to get out of this place.
It's always great to hear that, though, because a lot of people I know think that, well, yeah, index funds, that's the easy way out. That's if you don't want to make a lot of money and if you don't want to spend time doing it. But really, it is most of the studies show that it is the optimal strategy, just due to the low costs and the diversification and the tax efficiency and all of that. So it's great to hear someone who was actually in the business coming to that realization as well, even though I'm sure you had many resources at your fingertips to potentially try to beat the market averages.
Sure, but that's the thing, is the market averages. This is what the money managers try to beat every year, and they struggle to beat it. So why not just own it?
Exactly. Yep, absolutely. So that's your 36, 37. So then 38 rolls around, and I assume all of your numbers start looking good, and you actually take the plunge. So what was that like?
Well, we, were supposedly prepared for this, but when we had estate sales for 2 or 3 weekends in a row, and that we sold everything, the bed out from under us, our inlaid dining room furniture, our beveled glass mirrors, our china cabinet, the brass and obsidian glass pecan wood bedrooms, the whole thing, and each piece going out, again, I'm the girl, and I'm just going, oh my God, this is what I worked for, isn't it? And so after the estate sales, then it was like, then we went to the flea market, then after that, it was everything went to Goodwill and women's centers and all that sort of thing. And then after that, things went into storage. We actually had stuff later that I thought, well, if this doesn't work out, I'll use these business clothes, or I can't get rid of my books, or what about all the letters from my grandpa, and my father in the Second World War, this kind of thing. So there was a nut still left, just a kernel of things that we still didn't want to get rid of. Billy was offered a job, just like a transition job as a French chef down in the Caribbean islands. And that was our first destination, was that I was going to meet him on these Caribbean islands, and he was going to be the chef and I was going to be doing probably the front or managing the reservations or some such at this Caribbean island resort. And so that was in January of 1991. Well, the Gulf War began and nobody was flying, and everybody's telling me, do not even think about it. Airplanes and going to a foreign country. And I'm saying, I don't have a place to live. I have no furniture. So actually the transition was a little bumpier than people need to go through.
Did you end up going to the Caribbean islands then, I assume?
Oh,
Yes.
absolutely. Yeah.
Oh yeah, we lived on the island of Nevis for 6 months,
Wow.
where my friend was the executive chef at the Four Seasons Resort, and this was a new business venture for the Four Seasons company, and they needed help. They were down there trying to train these island people into how to have 5-star service and cook 5-star food. And they had a date certain when they were opening, but they were behind schedule. And so he contacted me once he knew I was free and asked me if I'd give him a hand down there. And it was a great entry for us to get out of the States and go to the Caribbean, which we loved, and just to try something completely different. But it was just a temporary situation until we got the Four Seasons up and running.
Right. Had you always planned on becoming like perpetual travelers, or did that something that just, at the end of your time in the Caribbean, you just thought, well, hey, let's go somewhere else new, and then it just has continued like that for 20 years?
Yeah, it just kind of has taken a life of its own. We went from the Caribbean, we caught a sailboat, sailed down south to Grenada, and then flew over to Venezuela and hung out in Venezuela for a while, and then we came back to the States, and we ended up buying a used 1-ton pickup and a 28-foot fifth wheel trailer, and we traveled through the western states for a number of years.
And now you have a base in Arizona, is that correct?
We have one base in Arizona, that's correct.
And also you're down in Chapala, Mexico as well?
That's where we are currently at, yes.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Akaisha.
Oh, I was just going to say, we have a couple of bases. We like Guatemala quite a bit in Central America, so we rent a place when we're there in Panajachel, Guatemala, and we love Asia, and we generally hang out in Chiang Mai, where we rent as well, and then we can fly to the whole Pacific Rim, nations in that place also. So we are perpetual travelers, but we tend to like have a base from which is familiar, from which we travel to these other locations.
Yeah, that appeals to me so much. Whenever we live abroad for a long period of time, like when we were in China for 3 months, we would see, backpackers whenever we'd visit bigger places like Hong Kong or something like that. And just seeing them just makes me feel so tired. and like, I'm like, I don't know how you do it, but we felt like home was in China at that point. And then whenever we're just going out and, spending a weekend or a week or something, traveling somewhere in the region, then it feels like we do come home, but it's just home in China. And that just makes it feel so nice. And you don't get tired, I don't think.
Right.
Cause yeah, we would run into people and they're like, they're just trying to pack so much in, and they're just seeing so much that they're like we were in Belize recently, and we ran into people that were traveling just nonstop for over a year, and they're like, yeah, we just went and saw some more ruins, and they weren't impressed by it at all. They're just like, they just had to do it. It was like a job.
I know. Oh, exactly. It's like a job. I mean, how awful to live with the people and hang out and go to the markets, and we don't take our backpacks to the market. We don't carry all that stuff. It's so much more fun, and you can see the early morning fishermen and see the festivals when they happen and all that kind of stuff. You get to know your neighbors and the restaurant owners and whatever.
Right.
It's so much more fun.
Yeah, it sounds amazing. Yeah, actually, Chiang Mai is on probably the top of our list as far as where we're going first. We've never been to Southeast Asia, and that's one of the places that I've wanted to go the most. And it's just great that it happens to be also one of the cheapest places to live. So where
It's
things,
gorgeous there.
yeah, and Chiang Mai seems like it's much more our style than maybe Bangkok or somewhere else in Thailand.
It,
So
it's much more manageable.
good. That's good to hear.
Yep.
Yeah, so that's where we're heading first, and really excited just to explore that whole area and yeah, live the Thai life for a little while. So you've been traveling, slow traveling, for the past 20 plus years. Now, during that time, were you invested still in index funds? Is that the primary thing that you are invested in?
Yes, and even today we still have quite a bit in index funds.
So you survived the .com crash, the 2008 financial crisis, all of these things. What was it like to go through those periods?
We survived Black Monday in 1987 when you were just coming up.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, that's true.
Barely born.
That's
Um, well, the we were fine. We were able to weather all of those crises out, um, including 2008 financial meltdown. But at that time, after three in a row in a short period of time, I decided to get more proactive in our investment approach. And so that's what I did. I put my broker's hat back on, and now I'm not a day trader. And I mean, just to give you an example, so far this year we've done one trade,
right.
so we're still quite a bit, buy and hold. But I'm trying to hedge ourselves in order to avoid these 30 or 40% downdrafts
Hmm.
that can just wipe out huge chunks of your portfolio.
Sure. So you've been withdrawing around 3% a year. Is that correct? Has that been what you've been targeting throughout your early retirement?
We don't really target it. We just spend it, and then that's the after effect. But I when I went into this, I used the 4% rule
Hmm.
without knowing without before I think it was even invented. Um, it just I figured out that if we spent this much money and then add some inflation to it, and then if I could make just a little bit more than that, then we'd be okay. And that's how this all kind of got started. And then later I learned about the 4% rule. I said, oh, yeah, well, that makes sense. Um, so that's, but we don't budget. Like the 4% rule is pretty strict if you are diehard about it. Like it's you take your portfolio's value, multiply it times 4%, and then add inflation, and that's what you're able to spend for that year. Well, we don't do it that way. We just spend, and then we track it every day. I can tell you what percentage of spending I'm at up to today. Um, you know, I've set up a spreadsheet program that does this for us, and
That's available on your website, isn't it?
yeah, it's available through our books.
Okay.
And I think that's really important for people to do. I think whether you use our spreadsheets or create your own, I think it's really important because the tools are here today to do this very, very easily. And you should be able to know where you're at every day financially. I tell people that, if you're going to drive from California to New York and you're lost somewhere in Texas, how are you going to get to New York? You need to know where you're at
Hmm.
in order for you to get to go to where you want to go.
Absolutely. Yeah, and especially with tools like Mint out there and just to tap into everything, and even if you don't want to spend any time doing it, some software can actually do it for you these days.
Exactly. I'm just kind of old fashioned in that I just develop my own spreadsheets for my own particular use.
Yeah, I'm the same actually. You can make them do it exactly what you want them to do rather than just
Exactly.
uh,
Because I know what information is important to me and I know the warning signals that I have to look for. So I've got them built in.
so you track all your spending, but I think I remember reading that you don't budget. You just you track where you're at, but you don't necessarily have a budget to govern where you're going. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah, we don't say like we're going to spend X amount on food every month or X amount on lodging. We just do it and figure it out.
the other day we were looking at our spending here in Chapala, and I mean we've been eating out because we haven't seen these people for a while. We've been going to restaurants and bars and so on and so forth. And I just finished refreshing my wardrobe in California because I can try the clothes on; they're my size and my style and so on. And we bought some digital equipment and so on and so forth. And so we were sort of blowing money. And I mean, which we don't really do. And anyway, so we were looking at our spending, the daily average and such, and we were just shocked at how much per year it was. It was so little. And we both looked at each other and said, how much more can we eat? How much more fun can we have? I mean, how many more clothes do I need? We bought new computers, we bought new hard drives, the whole thing. I mean, we spent some money, freshed our vitamins, the whole thing, and
Mm-hmm.
and then we were still ridiculously low.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like it will take a lot to give you a really exciting, interesting, fulfilling life.
Exactly.
And the internet's probably the most deflationary thing in our lifestyle. I mean, in our lifetime, um, because it has just created so much competition for sales of everything
Mm.
that the competition is so fierce out there. I mean, computers are half the price of what we used to pay for them, and with 3 times the features.
Right, absolutely. So what would you say is your average annual spending, if you don't mind me asking, just over the past, I don't know, 5, 10 years?
Less than 30,000 a year.
Wow, for two people.
Right. People think that you have to have millions and millions of dollars to retire, and that's just some. I think the brokerage business is the one who created this myth.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, there's,
They,
I'm sure
they
there's many industries that have created the myth just to keep people working and spending and
exactly, and the brokerage business, they only tell you when to buy, they never tell you when to sell.
right. Yeah, exactly.
I
Um,
do think that, that speaking of the brokerage business and the couple of $1 million in order to manage the lifestyle that you currently have, that's what they always say, that to maintain the level of living that you currently have. And, some people do want a boat in the harbor and they do want a couple of cars and they do want a garden and a pet and 3 or 4 bedrooms in their homes and stuff like that. And those people will probably have to have more because they have a maintenance nut they have to pay. But not everybody wants that, and there's so many different housing options and so many different other types of options to live your life. And I mean, I know people that make thousands of dollars in income every month, 10,000. This one guy I know every month in his retirement income, and it's still not enough for him because people tend to spend what they have. If it's coming in, they spend it.
mhm.
So it's like it's never enough is my point, unless you decide that it is.
Right. No, yeah, absolutely. I'm going to do something a little different I haven't done before, since I've never had multiple guests on at the same time. I'm just going to go through like a lightning round of quick questions about places for early retirement, because I know that's something I'm very interested in because, like I said, my wife and I hope to spend most of our time somewhere else abroad. So if you don't mind, I'm just going to go through a
Sure.
quick list of questions and you both can answer and you don't have to agree, or you can agree. But
Are
so
they
yeah,
true and false?
no, they're places. um, so yeah, we'll start it off. The best food. Where in the world that you've lived with the best food?
Oh man,
Oh,
France.
Mexico, Thailand.
I say
Excellent.
France. France has got the best food in my opinion. I'm prejudiced because I was trained in French cooking.
Right. Yeah, that's true. So France, Mexico, and Thailand. Excellent. How about friendliest locals?
Guatemala.
Yes, Guatemala. Everybody's been friendly everywhere. We thought the Thai were fabulous, the Mexicans, the Guatemalans just take the prize.
Where were you in Guatemala?
In Antigua and in Panajachel.
Excellent. Which one did you prefer?
Panajachel because they've got this large lake, Lake Atitlan there, and it's
Excellent.
just a natural, beautiful. It's the Lake Tahoe of the South. Um, it's one of the top 10 places in the world to see, so you've got to go there.
Excellent. Yeah, it sounds perfect. How about nicest weather?
Hmm.
Chapala, Panajachel, Guatemala.
Are
Yep.
those all high altitude places with?
Yeah, a mile high, but below the Tropic of Cancer.
Okay. So nice spring-like temperatures all year round, I guess.
Yeah, you could put Antigua, Guatemala in that as well, and San Miguel de Allende in Mexico. I mean, as long as you stay up in the hot elevation, it's not going to get too hot, not going to get too cold.
Nice. Acacia, is that the same for you?
Yes, it is. We both tend to like dry, cool, fresh weather, a lot of sun.
Excellent. How about best beaches?
Ah, Vietnam, Naples, Florida, Gulf Coast of Florida,
Phuket, Thailand.
Phuket, Thailand,
Hmm,
all the islands down southern Thailand.
excellent.
Mexico,
Mexico,
Pacific Coast has outrageous beaches.
yeah, they're different.
Not sugar white sand, but gorgeous.
Yeah, if you want the beach like in the vacation promo, then you go to Phuket or Naples, Florida, or the Caribbean
Vietnam.
side of Mexico. But
In
if you want the
Vietnam.
rough and tough surfing beaches, then the Pacific Coast of Thailand are some of the best in the world.
Pacific Coast of Mexico.
Excuse me, Pacific Coast of Mexico.
Excellent. How about biggest culture shock?
Asia,
I would say Asia.
for sure. As soon as you get off the plane, you realize you're not in Kansas.
It's so exotic. It's so exotic. It's so exciting. It's just amazing. Of course, you've been there, so you know. But
Oh, it was amazing. That was
yeah,
the thing I liked the most. Yeah, it was actually quite weird. We flew into Hong Kong, and then we were living in a city called Wenzhou. So we spent like 4 days in Hong Kong before we went to Wenzhou, and I was just so excited in Hong Kong. But my wife, the culture shock really hit her then, and she was like,
uh-huh.
"Oh my gosh, we're going to be here for months and months." Um, but I was fine. I was like, I was just on top of the world. I was so excited to be there. And then we
Exactly.
switched when we got to Wenzhou. I was like, oh my, oh my God, we're gonna be here for three months at least. And then finally, my wife was like, oh, this is fine, this is good. So it worked out because we were able to support each other in our times of oh, what are we doing? but
Right,
Exactly.
exactly.
but that's what makes it
Exactly.
exciting, and that's what you look back on and think, oh yeah, it's so amazing just to be somewhere so completely different.
Exactly.
In Asia is that it's completely different. I tell people that it's 180 degrees from the Western world.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. But that's what makes it exciting. How about most familiar?
You mean like in a different culture, the most familiar?
Yeah, like somewhere where you would just you feel instantly settled and
Oh, Chapala.
yeah.
We spent so much time here in Chapala, Mexico, that it's just like a home to us. We've got a lot of friends here, and some of these people we've known for 20 years.
Oh, that's great. That must make it a lot of fun.
Yeah,
How about easiest to get around?
Asia, would you say?
yeah. Public transport in Asia is so good.
Because you guys haven't had cars for a while now, is that correct?
That's
That's right.
correct. Yeah.
Oh man, I hate cars so much. They're just if I never had to not have another one again, I'm just so excited to get rid of the ones that we have and not.
People have no idea the expense that their car costs them.
Oh, it's crazy. By far our biggest expense, even over housing. It's insane.
Yes.
Yes, it is.
And it's a depreciating asset, and that's what hurts.
Oh, I know. Yep, yep, it's terrible. So final one in the little lightning round. If you had to choose one place, I know that was probably hard because you have so many bases and so many places you've been, but if you had to choose just one,
Mm. Oh. Mm. I guess I would choose someplace in Latin America, someplace either Chapala or Guatemala, just because the culture is familiar. I speak the language. Like I don't speak enough Thai or Chinese to make my life comfortable, and it's international airports close to home if I need to go for a family visit for whatever reason. So I would choose Latin America.
how about you, Billy?
Yeah, I think Panajachel, Guatemala would be my number one choice at this time. I mean, that's tough because Chiang Mai, Thailand is very good. It's very close second, just because the services in Chiang Mai are so good. I mean, you got top rate hospitals and doctors there, as well as you know tennis and swimming, Olympic swimming pools and things of this sort. So
International airports,
yeah, everything's there.
transportation, cost of food and living.
Yeah, what would you say the cost of living is like for people that may not like? I obviously know how cheap it is. Well, not firsthand, but just through lots of reading. But could you just give a rundown of a typical day, maybe in Chiang Mai, just to show people how little you actually would need to spend to have an incredible life over there.
Sure, you could probably spend about $10 or so for your hotel, and that would be a nice one. Your meals probably for the whole day for one person, and that's if you blow it out, would be $5. Um, so like say you want to buy something at the market for a friend and ship it home or something, that'd probably be another $5 to $10 depending. You know what I'm saying? Because the quality of items over there is just fabulous.
You can live over there for about $38 a day without much hardship.
And that's for the two of us.
Right, that's for two people.
Wow, that's incredible. And yeah, is the food as amazing as I dream it is?
Oh yeah, I mean, plus it's international, so you can get everything from McDonald's to
Chicago pizza,
yeah,
barbecued ribs, cornbread. But those types of food will cost you more.
Right.
If you do the
Thai food.
Yeah, you're talking less, a dollar, less than $1.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking forward to. I love Thai food, so I'm very excited about that. What are some of the challenges associated with your lifestyle? Obviously, to me, it seems amazing and perfect, but I'm sure there's some some challenges. Are there any that you'd be willing to share?
Probably visas are the biggest challenge.
Right.
Because we're forced, unless we decide to take up residency in some country, we're forced to move on at some point. But the other side of that is it knocks the cobwebs off of you to go see other places.
Oh, that's true.
So we're still young enough to where we're not ready to just settle in one place yet. So there's a yin and a yang to that.
Mm-hmm.
But definitely visas are always something that's in the back of your mind that, okay, I'm here for so many days.
Right.
And now I got to move on. Now, there are ways around that. In Asia, you do what's called border runs, and as well as in Latin America, you take the bus to the border, turn around, and come back, and get a fresh visa.
Right.
Or in Guatemala, we actually pay somebody to do it for us, so we don't even have to leave.
Oh, nice.
So there are services set up for this,
mm-hmm.
but things changed since 9/11. Countries have gotten more automated, more computerized, and so everybody knows where you're at all the time anymore.
Right. Akaisha, you mentioned that you speak Spanish, I assume. Have you guys picked up any other languages along the way?
Yes, we're functional in Thai. We can order food and get a hotel and bargain at the markets, and we can, speak very lightly social type of Thai. But between the amount of English they speak, and the amount of Thai we speak, we can get along on a very surface level. When they speak English, we can get a little deeper. But I've forgotten all of my Chinese, so it's just pretty basic nothing. But between the Spanish and the little bit of Thai we know, that's functional, and of course English, that covers a lot of area.
We used to know some French, but that's too long.
Yeah, I took French in school too, but I'm sure I'd pick it back up. It's dormant.
Right. Yeah, that's another thing I'm really excited about I've always wanted to learn a language, but without needing to learn it, it's always one of those things that just keeps getting pushed back down the priority list. But
one of the things that's really good is the World Nomads free language guides. We have a link to that too on our site. I'd be happy to send it to you. You can just
perfect.
Look World Nomads language links, and they give you all the survival phrases for free. You don't have to pay for it and get it as an app. And so basically all you have to do is get started, and then you can function in that culture.
I think the best thing to do is just immerse yourself into the culture. If you want to learn Spanish, come down here into Mexico or into Guatemala or anywhere in Latin America and just jump in. There's language schools all over the place, and they're not expensive. And some of them, they let you stay with a family, a local family, so you're forced to speak Spanish 24/7.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that sounds great. All right, well, yeah, we're getting to the end of the interview here, and I usually ask all of my guests if they had, one piece of advice for someone that's, just thinking about starting on their pursuit of financial independence. What would it be?
Work hard, spend a little, save a lot, and invest wisely.
Akaisha?
Yeah, I would say the freedom you get from financial independence is worth anything you have to do to get there. I don't care if it's giving up that extra pair of shoes or not going out to lunch. If it means it's that self-reliance, that freedom. If it means anything at all to you, find out how to do it. Do it.
Perfect. Thank you both again so much for joining me today. It's been so good to talk to you. And if people want to get in touch, should they just head to retireearlylifestyle.com? I can email you there? Or?
Yes, they can email the guide at retireearlylifestyle.com, and we answer all of our emails.
Okay, so that's the guide at retireearlylifestyle.com.
That's correct.
I will put a link on the show notes, both to the website and to the email address, and then all your books are available on the website as well.
That's right. We have a digital bookstore.
Excellent. Well, again, thank you both so much. It's been a pleasure, and hopefully I'll see you down somewhere in Latin America here in the next couple of years.
Yeah, Excellent. Keep in touch, Brandon. We're always available.
Excellent. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Well, I hope my discussion with Billy and Akaisha was as exciting for you as it was for me. The fact that they were able to retire with $500,000 between them in 1991 and then go on to live such exciting and adventurous lives really gives a lot of hope to people like me who are interested in incorporating long-term travel into their early retirement plans. It's also great to hear that they haven't really tired of the lifestyle either and seem just as excited by the possibilities as they may have been back in the early 90s. So yeah, it was a great interview. I really appreciate Billy and Akaisha taking the time to talk with me, and thank you guys out there for listening.
A squared plus B squared equals finance.